Right, so let's start with outside. And this week, I'm speaking to someone who's fought in war zones across the globe. Phil Campion joined the armed forces at 16 and worked his way to earn a place in the UK's elite fighting force, the SAS. Now, since leaving the army, he's worked as a private military contractor, written about his experiences, and works as a champion for the Army Cadets. He's also just released a brand new book about his life, which focuses on his difficult upbringing, the aptly titled Who Dares Wins. And I'm pleased to say Phil joins me in the studio now. Phil, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining me. Right, so, I mean, first of all, you've had quite a difficult sort of upbringing. Tell us a bit about yourself, because some people may have seen you on things or read things about you, but they might not have known.
Yeah, so aside the Who Dares Wins, the macho image and all that sort of stuff, there's a different bloke underneath there. Do you know what I mean? I have this persona, do you know what I mean? It's almost like Liam Gallagher of Oasis. He's out there, he's always on the... And then when he goes home, he's a different man, do you know what I mean?
Soft and cuddly.
And the same thing here. I think, you know, this book in particular was brought about by... I was at an after dinner, I was speaking, and the speaker before me was talking about, it was for the NHS, for people that foster and adopt children, and he was speaking about how this lad had been interfered with, how he'd been groomed and all this sort of stuff, and how if they could identify and have other people's experiences, they would find it easier to identify the perpetrators and maybe do something about it. And I sat there with my script thinking, that has happened to me. It's 50 years ago, but that happened to me. Do you know what I mean? I got groomed in a children's home, the Church of England Children's Society home, and I got groomed in there. And it took me a long, long time before I realised I was going to speak about it. I hadn't even spoken to my wife about it. And literally, as I had my speech ready to go on this thing, I put it in the bin, and I walked up and I went and told them exactly what happened to me. And then after I did that, I thought, look, if I can get this down on paper, maybe it will genuinely help. Not just them find the perpetrators, but other young people who are going through difficult times to go, hey, this geezer's done loads of stuff here. He's done some really cool stuff. He's been with the stars, he's been on television, he's been in the army, he's done this, that and the other. And I've got a problem. And I don't feel I can talk about it. But he did. So why can't I? Because if I'd have spoke about it years ago, some of the scrapes that I did get in, I'm not going to shoulder sort of like try and offload it onto them, but I might have had an easier ride in some respects, do you know what I mean? So, yeah, it was a hallelujah moment, but I thought, no, I've got to speak about that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so your book, does it talk about what happened to you?
Yes, yeah, it goes on, it lists categorically exactly what happened to me. You know, the guy was head of the education unit in the children's home. He obviously picked upon me, vulnerable, always in trouble, you know, and before you knew it, he was doing some extremely strange things, and I'm like, oh, what's going on here? And he's going, well, no one's ever going to listen to you. Because you're the trouble boy here. You're the trouble boy. You better do what you're told, because you're going to make things worse for yourself. You know, and eventually you just got to sort of like, roll with it. And I never spoke about it for the whole of my life. But it was like, this is awful.
Yeah, and now you've spoken about it, is there a sense of relief and actually a sense that you can help others?
I swear now, as I came out of that building that night, I literally, Wendy's out there, I got on the phone to Wendy and I'm like, whoa, and I just broke down on the thing. I was like, whoa. I said, it's all gone. It's all gone. It was like taking 10 kilos of spuds off the top of my head like that I've been carrying around all my life. It was like, boom, they're gone. I was like, wow, this is insane. And I just realised that, you know, perhaps, even now, talking about it, I think the people are going to look at you and go, you making excuses, son, here? No. Do you know what I mean? Even now, I think they're going to do that to me, you know? Now, I can't blame everything on it. I was a little brat, as they call you sometimes, as a kid, do you know what I mean? And I was as naughty as the next guy. But I wasn't nasty, I wasn't horrible, and I didn't deserve that. Well, and I should have been able to be in a position where I felt I could talk about it. Yeah. And that's what I want from this book. I want people to realise that no matter what your trials and tribulations are, however your mental health is, whatever you perceive other things to be, don't forget, you can always talk to somebody about it.
And nothing can justify anyone treating you in
that way.
No,
absolutely not. No.
It's totally unacceptable.
No.
On every level. So do you think that experience and your upbringing was one of the reasons why you went to sort of get yourself involved with the army and fighting?
Yeah, I got a job as a ski instructor. Now, this same guy helped me get this job on the YTS as a ski instructor, so he was still tipping up periodically. When the manager of this place I was working, he was an ex-admiral in the Navy, he said, why have you thought about the army? And I had thought about the army, and then I thought, hang on a minute, you can't follow me there. So literally, I joined the army, and I joined as quick as I could. I was like, I'm out of here, I'm going, do you know what I mean? And I literally joined and flashed a bang. I was in the army within about 3 or 4 months of having the conversation with this guy, and I went. And I don't look back on it. I think it was the right place for me. I left school with no qualifications. I had a cycle proficiency. I took that twice. All right, so I wasn't doing particularly well. There wasn't many doors open to me. there was a massive door open that said you can get in as much trouble as you like, but that's going to end in one place, isn't it? And so, you know, I literally had a word with myself and said, right, sort yourself out, Phil, get yourself out there and get yourself in the army.
Now, obviously, it really suited you because you ended up in the SAS. How do you go from the army to the SAS? What's the deal?
It's a volunteer. The SAS is a totally volunteer thing. You know, I enjoyed what I did. I had a little bit of exposure. I'd seen some of the stuff that they did, and so eventually I volunteered. I took on the selection process, passed the selection process, and became a member of the badge. You know, I was badged for D Squadron.
So what's the selection process like? What do you have
It's tough.
do? Yeah.
It's a tough selection process. It's designed to weed out people that don't want to be there, okay? Because a force like the SAS needs people that want to be there, not people that sort of like think they want to be there, because you will get caught out eventually, okay? So it is designed to break you down. It is designed to make you, you know, really want to push yourself to the limits. But it's not impossible. And that's another thing I say to lots of young people. Nothing's impossible in this life. But people will tell you it is. Other people break your dreams. You've got to try and keep them alive in your own head.
Well, they project their insecurity onto
Of course
you,
they
don't
do.
they?
I always say to young lads, because I've got asked by lots of young soldiers, you know, what about SAS, what about this, what about that, what about the other? And I say to them, Joey, go for it. Just go for it. Because the only person who's ever going to tell you not to is someone who's failed.
Yeah.
Oh, it's impossible, mate. Oh, I'll tell you what, they put a house on me back. No, I passed it.
So give us so you talked about house on your back. Obviously, you didn't do that, but give us some of the things that you had to do.
There's some long forced route marches. There's a lot of time spent in the jungle where it's close, it's tight, it's, you know, you've got to perform. It's wet, it's dry. It's, you know, there's some formidable tasks that take place. About, you know, I can't really go into the whole process, but you know, it's a 6 to 8 month process. Which, if you don't want to be there and if you're not prepared properly for it, mentally and physically, you ain't going to be there at the end, right? You're going to be going home. And
you got through it, and you were known for taking part in certain operations like Operation Barras. Which
I was in Operation Barras,
sudden death or certain death. What's that? What is that?
I mean, that was the rescue of the Royal Irish, who got themselves pinched by the West Side Boys in Sierra Leone. You know, a particularly you know, dangerous operation, but you know, like I say, without going into too much detail about it, you know, we went in, we did our job, we came back out again. You know, unfortunately, we did lose one there. We lost two en route.
So you had to get it to Sierra Leone and get somebody out of there.
Yeah. Well, the whole thing. Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy job. It's not.
Wow.
It's not the given, is it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's certainly not the given that these people, every time they deploy, they're going to come home either.
And presumably,
when
you can't really talk about those things after.
No, not massively. No, I mean, there's no secret I was there. It's been 2 or 3 publications, but you know, to go into the Pacifics would be crossing a couple of lines that maybe I don't want to.
Yeah, you can't say that in the book either. You can't.
No, there's nothing in there in the book.
Yeah.
No. It can intimate all you like, but that is, I mean, there was some cracking stuff in the book, you know. There is a bit of daring do, and I wanted people, you know, not only from my first book, Born Fearless, but through this one, to see that, you know, the sort of stuff that I've achieved, okay, but this one in particular, I said you can achieve that and still have a little bit, you know, you can do wrong as well. You know, I've been remanded in custody, that sort of stuff. I've been in trouble, I've had this and that and the other. And, you know, in times where I've been really low, really down, it's been my own mental attitude that's pulled me through. You know, nobody else. You know, and those conversations have to start with yourself. People say you're mad if you talk to yourself. I'll say you're mad if you don't. Have a look in the mirror. Have a look at that person in that mirror, because that's the only person you can't tell a lie to.
Say that. I spend hours talking to myself in the mirror. I'm the most interesting person I know.
Absolutely. I'm the only that person in the mirror is the only person as well. I can't tell a lie to. He knows me, and I know him. You know what I mean? So, you know, I found that a good route to finding, you know, to getting me talking to other people. Acknowledge what you've got yourself. Acknowledge your own problems, and then you can go and talk to other people about it. Because if you just put your head in the sand, you'll never get there.
Now, when you left the army, you became a private military contractor.
Yeah.
That must have felt like a bit of from doing SAS and everything else like that.
It wasn't, but it became, it was the second best. I won't lie to you, it was second best, you know what I mean? To be fair, I'd have liked to have been a footballer for England, but I wasn't any good. Do you know what I mean?
That would be a problem.
So, that was the problem there, so I had to run with what I had. I had to run with the skills I had.
Yeah.
You know, I came out of the SAS with some great skill sets, which were deployable and which, moreover, could make me a little bit of dough.
Why did you leave, though, the SAS?
I had a falling out with a couple of my superiors, and I bought my way out in the end. I PVR'd, I got out. I was very headstrong. You know, I wish I could have gone a little bit further sometimes, but then it's no point dwelling back there, is it? You know what I mean? I've been a massively roller coaster in my life. You know what I mean? And
you said you're a volunteer at the SAS, so they don't get paid to do the job.
No, volunteer as in you have to volunteer to go on selection. Of course, you get paid.
And I can imagine it pays really well though, because you're.
I think nowadays it pays a little bit better than probably did in my day. But no, it's very important to realise that the soldiers there are volunteers. Press ganged men don't perform like people who actually want to be there. And that's, you know.
Yeah.
That's the point in mentioning the fact that they're volunteers.
It sounds a bit James Bondy territory. Was it like that a bit?
No, I don't think so.
Really? No, nothing like that.
You know.
No. So you're so now talk to me about what you've been doing since you left all of that.
So the private military contracting, Wendy put a nip in the bud for that. Do you know what I mean? I'm running away every 5 minutes. As it says in the book, you know, I got put in a container in Togo. I got locked up. I got told I was a mercenary. I was going to get shot. You know, all this sort of stuff. It all has a toll. And so, you know, having written my first book, Born Fearless, it had been a Times bestseller, and I decided to see if I couldn't go do something in the media. So I did, but unfortunately my first task was straight out to Syria, wasn't it? Do you know what I mean? To go and make Big Phil's War. So it was out of the frying pan into the fire. And actually, I probably got closer to any action in Syria than what I did for a very long time before that. So, yeah, it was cool. But then, you know, one thing led to another, and I started doing more media bits and pieces and what have you. And, you know, nowadays I've got my radio station up and running. We run a few bits and pieces there, which is great fun. And I'm sort of like just muddling my way through this media world, which is not the easiest.
And your book, of course, is out this week.
Yeah, this is out. I think it's out now, I think. So there you go. Which camera are we? That one over there. That'll do, won't it? There you go. Shamelessly plugging me book. All right. Okay, it's out in paperback this week. Various outlets, Amazon. I think there's some airport copies kicking about somewhere, and obviously the big ones, the Waterstones and all that sort of stuff. They'll have it.
Of course. Well, listen, it's an incredible. I mean, your journey has been incredible, and obviously it's still going, and you've probably got a lot more to achieve. If you had a pearl of wisdom that you could pass on to somebody, the one thing or something that keeps you going, what would that be?
Never ever give up. Never listen to the naysayers. Just keep going, keep plodding. Keep plodding, keep going, just keep going. It'll happen for you eventually, you know what I mean? But it won't happen for you if you give up. That's the golden rule. If you give up, it'll never happen. Just keep going, keep going. Set your sights high, never set them low. If you set them low, you'll hit the dirt. If you set them high, well, you're going that way, aren't you? You know what I mean? You might just hit the top. Well, you never know.
Yeah, it's great.